I'm Samantha Mitchell, 26, standing in a wood-paneled courtroom with my parents shooting daggers from the defendant's table. The familiar eye roll from my mother made my stomach clench, but I straightened my spine anyway. 3 years of law school had prepared me for this moment, despite their attempts to crush that dream. When Judge Peterson called my name, the surprise on his face was evident as he connected the dots between me and my parents. The same last name was no coincidence. Before I tell you how I ended up facing my own parents in court, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you want more stories about standing your ground when no one believes in you. Growing up in Wellesley, Massachusetts, a pristine Boston suburb with manicured lawns and colonial homes, meant living up to impossible standards. Our 5-bedroom house, with its perfect landscaping, matched my parents' perfect expectations. My mother, Eleanor Mitchell, ran Boston Memorial Hospital with military precision, while my father, Richard, executed corporate takeovers with calculated precision as a senior executive at a healthcare conglomerate. Their success cast a long shadow, one I was expected to not just stand in, but somehow extend. From kindergarten, perfection wasn't celebrated in our home, it was baseline expected. A 98% on a math test prompted questions about the missing 2%. Piano recitals weren't opportunities for growth, but performances to be critiqued. My parents mapped my entire life trajectory before I even learned to tie my shoes. Top universities, medical school, prestigious residency, and eventually taking over my mother's position at the hospital. I discovered my passion for law in 6th grade, when Mrs. Harrington assigned us a mock trial. Playing the defense attorney for a fictional case about environmental pollution ignited something in me. I stayed up all night preparing arguments, researching precedents far beyond what was expected of a 12-year-old. When we won the case, I felt alive in a way I never had before. That was fun, but don't get too attached, my mother said on the drive home. It's just a school project, not a career path. I tried explaining how much I loved constructing arguments, how the legal principles made sense to me in a way biology never did. My father dismissed it as a cute phase, while reminding me of the MCAT preparation books he'd already purchased for my high school years. In 9th grade, I joined the high school debate team against my parents' wishes. They permitted it only after I promised it would look good on college applications. Every tournament meant sneaking out early on Saturday mornings while they slept, competing across the state, and returning with trophies I had to hide in my closet, because they cluttered the living room shelves already filled with my parents' accolades. Ms. Jenkins, my debate coach, noticed my passion early on. After watching me argue both sides of a complex constitutional issue, she pulled me aside. "Sam, you have a natural gift for this," she said, using the nickname my parents despised. "Have you thought about pursuing law?" When I confided about my parents' expectations, her eyes softened. Sometimes the hardest people to stand up to are the ones who claim they know what's best for us. By junior year, I was captain of the debate team and leading our mock trial team to the state championship. The evening we won against the defending champions, my parents didn't attend. My mother was at a hospital board meeting, my father on a business trip to Chicago. When I placed the championship trophy on the kitchen counter, my mother barely glanced at it. "That's nice, dear. Did you finish your AP biology lab report?" That's what colleges will actually care about. The dismissal stung worse than outright criticism. At least criticism acknowledged effort. This felt like erasing my achievement entirely. Senior year brought college applications, and my first real rebellion. While completing the required pre-med applications to Harvard, Yale, and Johns Hopkins, I secretly applied to undergraduate programs with strong pre-law tracks. When acceptance letters arrived, I hid the ones with law program brochures. The acceptance to Columbia's prestigious undergraduate program with a partial scholarship to study political science, should have been cause for celebration. Instead, I sat on my bed staring at the letter, knowing what would happen when I showed my parents. That night at dinner, I gathered my courage. "I've been accepted to Columbia," I said, voice steadier than I felt. My mother looked up from her salmon. "Excellent. Their medical program is exceptional. Actually, I applied for political science as a pre-law track." The silence was deafening. My father set down his fork with deliberate slowness. "You did what?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "I want to study law, not medicine. I've always wanted to." My mother's laugh held no humor. "This nonsense again. Samantha, we've discussed this. Law is oversaturated, competitive, and not nearly as stable as medicine." "But I don't want to be a doctor," I insisted. "I've never wanted that." "What you want will change," my father said dismissively. "What doesn't change is the security of a medical career. Do you know how many unemployed lawyers there are? How many drown in student debt working meaningless cases? I'd rather work meaningful cases I care about than be a doctor who hates her job," I countered. That's when the ultimatum came. My mother placed her napkin beside her plate, a gesture I recognized as her preparing for executive decision-making. "Here's what's going to happen. You will attend the pre-med program at Johns Hopkins, which has also accepted you. We will pay your tuition, room, and board. If you choose this alternative path, you will do so without our financial support." The crushing weight of their expectations squeezed the air from my lungs. Without their support, college would mean crippling loans, multiple jobs, and potentially not finishing at all. Their perfectly orchestrated trap left me no viable escape. "You'll thank us later," my father added, returning to his dinner as if my future had been nothing more than a minor interruption. Sometimes parents have to protect children from themselves. That night, I cried until no more tears would come. The acceptance letter to Columbia lay crumpled beside my bed, much like my dreams. 2 weeks later, I sent my confirmation to Johns Hopkins pre-med program, surrendering to my parents' vision for my life. As I sealed the envelope, I felt something inside me seal off as well. Johns Hopkins pre-med program was exactly as soul-crushing as I'd feared. While other freshmen were discovering passions and reinventing themselves, I trudged through organic chemistry and physics labs that left me empty. My grades were adequate, but not stellar, performing just well enough to avoid parental intervention while privately drowning in apathy. My roommate Jessica Turner recognized my misery immediately. With her vibrant purple hair and double major in philosophy and computer science, she represented everything my parents would disapprove of, which naturally made her the perfect friend for me. "You look like someone's holding you hostage in that biology lab," she observed one night as I struggled through a lab report. "Is that really what you want to be doing for the rest of your life?" Her question broke something loose. Before I knew it, I was confessing everything: my love for law, my parents' ultimatum, the crushing weight of their expectations. Jessica listened without judgment, then asked the question that would change everything. "So you're sacrificing your happiness for people who wouldn't sacrifice anything for yours?" I had no answer. The truth was too painful to acknowledge. The next day, Jessica dragged me to an undergraduate law course as a visitor. The professor discussed constitutional interpretation with such passion that for the first time in months, I felt intellectually engaged. I took furious notes, asked questions after class, and left with a reading list tucked into my notebook like forbidden contraband. That semester, I began auditing law courses while maintaining my pre-med schedule. Between classes, study groups, and virtually no sleep, I managed to keep up appearances while secretly exploring the path I truly wanted. My parents' monthly phone calls focused solely on my science grades, never questioning how I spent my remaining time. Professor Winters, who taught constitutional law, noticed my enthusiasm despite my unofficial status in his class. After a particularly heated debate on First Amendment interpretations, he asked me to stay behind. "You're not actually enrolled in this class, are you, Ms. Mitchell?" My stomach dropped. "No, sir. I'm officially pre-med." Instead of anger, his expression showed understanding. "You argue with the passion of someone who's found their calling. If you don't mind me asking, why aren't you pursuing this officially?" The whole story spilled out again. When I finished, he nodded thoughtfully. I had a similar experience with my father, who wanted me to take over the family business. Sometimes the hardest path is the authentic one. He handed me a business card. "This is my academic advisor contact. If you ever decide to make a change, she can help navigate the process discreetly." That card burned a hole in my wallet for weeks. Every failed organic chemistry quiz, every mind-numbing memorization exercise pushed me closer to using it. Finally, after receiving AC on my midterm despite studying for days, I made the call. The process of switching majors happened in secret meetings and hushed conversations. By spring semester of sophomore year, I was officially a political science major with a pre-law focus, though my parents still believed I was following their prescribed path. For the first time, I excelled. Dean's List, professor commendations, and genuine enjoyment of my studies replaced the constant struggle. Then came Parents' Weekend in October of junior year. I'd managed to avoid their campus visits through elaborate excuses, but my mother insisted they were coming to take me to dinner and meet my professors. Panic set in. I considered faking illness, but knew they'd just reschedule. I thought about confessing over the phone, but couldn't bear their disappointment from a distance. In the end, fate decided for me. My parents arrived early, finding my dorm room empty. Jessica, unaware of the situation's gravity, helpfully informed them I was at the Pre-Law Student Association meeting in Hamilton Hall. When I returned to my dorm, they were waiting. My mother's eyes were cold as Arctic ice. My father's disappointment radiated like heat. Pre-Law Student Association. My mother's voice could have frozen hellfire. "Explain yourself, Samantha." There was no escape. I switched majors last year. I'm studying political science with a pre-law focus. My father's face turned alarming shades of red. "You deliberately deceived us. After everything we've discussed, everything we've provided. I tried to tell you what I wanted, I defended myself. You wouldn't listen. This is my life, not yours. A life we're funding," my mother reminded me icily. "Did that detail escape your attention when you made this impulsive decision?" "It wasn't impulsive. It's what I've wanted since I was 12. The argument escalated until other students in the hallway could surely hear. My carefully constructed secret life collapsed like a house of cards. "We're not paying for this rebellion," my father finally declared. "Either you switch back to pre-med immediately, or your next tuition bill is your own problem." The financial reality was crushing. Without their support, I'd need to leave school immediately. Student loans wouldn't cover everything mid-semester, and my part-time campus job barely paid for books. "You have until Monday to fix this mistake," my mother said, gathering her designer purse. "Otherwise, consider your educational funding terminated." They left without hugging me goodbye, without dinner, without any acknowledgement that I might have legitimate reasons for my choices. Jessica found me sobbing on our dorm room floor hours later. "They've got you trapped," she said after I explained, her usual cheerfulness dimmed. "But remember, it's only temporary. Once you graduate, you can still go to law school." Not without their support. Not without recommendations. Not without a perfect transcript in the major they want, I said between sobs. The next morning, I walked to the registrar's office and switched back to pre-med. Each signature felt like signing away pieces of my soul, but I saw no alternative. The remaining 2 years stretched before me like a prison sentence. I graduated with honors in biology, my parents beaming in the audience as if they'd accomplished something remarkable. My diploma felt heavy in my hands, weighted with compromise and lost opportunities. While classmates celebrated their futures with excitement, I smiled through gritted teeth, knowing my real battle was just beginning. The Monday after graduation, I started work at Northeastern Healthcare Solutions, where my father's college roommate Bradley served as Chief Operating Officer. My official title was Healthcare Operations Analyst, but the reality was glorified administrative work with a fancy office. The beige walls matched my beige existence, processing efficiency reports and attending meetings where executives talked about patient care in terms of profit margins. Each morning, I'd stand before my closet selecting from a collection of sensible pantsuits my mother had helped me purchase, professional armor for a battlefield I never chose. The office building's gleaming glass exterior reflected my carefully constructed facade, polished, perfect, and completely hollow. 3 months in, Ryan Campbell joined the marketing department. Tall with warm brown eyes and a genuine smile that seemed out of place amid corporate artifice, he noticed my disconnection during a budget meeting. "You looked like you were mentally anywhere but that conference room," he commented afterward by the coffee machine. "Can't say I blame you. Nothing more exciting than quarterly projection graphs, right?" His easy manner cracked my professional veneer, and I found myself smiling genuinely for the first time in months. Ryan became my lifeline in corporate purgatory. Lunch breaks with him turned into dinner dates, then weekend hikes where I could breathe outside the suffocating expectations of my reality. 6 months into our relationship, I finally confessed my buried law school dreams while we sat on his apartment balcony. "Why not apply now?" he asked, making it sound so simple. "Lots of people change careers. My parents would." I began. "Your parents don't control your life," he interrupted gently. "You're 23, financially independent with a good job. What could they really do?" His question lodged in my mind, taking root slowly. Maybe he was right. My salary could cover a modest apartment. With scholarships and loans, law school might be possible. For the first time since graduation, possibility flickered on my horizon. My parents, surprisingly, seemed to approve of Ryan. My mother actually smiled during our dinner introductions, while my father engaged him in discussions about marketing strategy. Their acceptance should have been a relief, but felt strangely discordant given their usual dismissal of anything I chose independently. "His appropriate," my mother declared afterward, as if checking items off a list. "Good family, excellent education, career-minded." The mystery of their approval unraveled 3 months later. Ryan and I had been discussing my LSAT preparation timeline when his expression suddenly shifted. "I need to tell you something," he said, staring at his hands. "Your father approached me at the company golf tournament last month." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "He offered to fast-track me for the director of marketing position opening next quarter. Said he'd personally recommend me to the board." The familiar chill of my parents' manipulation frosted over my momentary happiness. What did he want in exchange? Ryan's hesitation told me everything. "He thinks your law school ideas are impractical. He suggested I help guide you toward more suitable goals." "And you agreed?" My voice sounded distant, even to myself. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. "Sam, it's a career-making opportunity. So was law school for me." The betrayal cut deeper coming from someone I trusted. You've been discouraging me while pretending to be supportive. That's not fair. I've been realistic. There's a difference, he defended. Realistic meaning whatever aligns with my parents' plans. The pieces clicked into horrible place. Did my mother suggest you take me to dinner at Maison Bleu last week? To celebrate my promotion that keeps me firmly in healthcare. His silence confirmed everything. Get out, I whispered, then louder, get out of my apartment. Sam, you're overreacting. Your parents care about your future. My future. Not theirs. Not yours. Mine. Tears streamed down my face. I trusted you. I thought you were different. After he left, I called my mother, anger overriding years of cautious compliance. How dare you manipulate my relationship, I hissed when she answered. Samantha, calm down. I don't know what that young man told you, but stop lying. You and Dad used Ryan to keep me under control, just like you've used money, guilt, and anything else available. Hasai carried the weary tone of dealing with a difficult child. We simply helped him see the practical reality of your situation. These law school fantasies are childish. Ryan understands that a stable future. I hung up mid-sentence, something I'd never dared before. The breakup with Ryan unfolded in predictable stages, his initial contrition, then defensiveness, and finally acceptance when I remained unmoved. My parents' response proved equally predictable. You're being impulsive, my father lectured over our stilted monthly dinner. Ryan has excellent prospects. This setback is unnecessary. It wasn't a relationship setback, Dad. It was a trust violation. My mother waved dismissively. You'll find someone better suited to your temperament. Someone more aligned with your goals. You mean your goals, I corrected. The conversation moved on as it always did, my objections skirted like puddles on their immaculate path. Rock bottom arrived at the company Christmas party 3 weeks later. Surrounded by colleagues celebrating year-end bonuses, watching Ryan chat comfortably with my father across the room, I felt walls closing in. Escaping to the ladies' room, I locked myself in a stall and struggled to breathe through a panic attack, my carefully applied makeup streaming down my face. Staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I hardly recognized myself. The woman looking back had hollow eyes and a practiced smile that never reached them. In that moment of clarity, I realized I was disappearing into the life my parents had designed, becoming a ghost in my own existence. Something had to change, or there would soon be nothing left of me to save. The bathroom epiphany became my turning point. That night, I created a new email account my parents couldn't access, and began researching law school requirements. The LSAT would be my first hurdle, followed by applications, recommendations, and the massive challenge of financing it all. For the first time, I approached my future methodically, like the lawyer I intended to become. The next day, I opened a separate bank account at a different bank than my parents used, setting up automatic transfers of $500 from each paycheck. Small enough not to notice in my regular spending, but enough to slowly build an escape fund. I calculated I would need approximately $10,000 for first and last month's rent, security deposit, moving expenses, and emergency funds before I could make my break. January brought a company-wide professional development conference where I met Lauren Goldstein, a corporate attorney representing one of our partner firms. During a break between sessions, I found myself beside her at the coffee station. That was an insightful question you asked about the liability considerations, she commented, stirring cream into her coffee. Most operations analysts don't think about the legal implications that deeply. I've always been interested in legal frameworks, I admitted. Actually, I've been considering law school. Something in Lauren's expression shifted from polite networking to genuine interest. What area of law? Healthcare law, maybe. Or corporate accountability. We exchanged business cards before returning to our sessions. That evening, an email waited in my inbox inviting me to coffee the following week. That first meeting with Lauren turned into monthly mentoring sessions, where she reviewed my LSAT preparation, suggested reading material, and shared honest insights about law school realities. You have the analytical mind for this, she observed after reviewing my practice test scores. But are you prepared for the personal challenges? Law school is demanding enough without family opposition. I've been living with their opposition to my choices my entire life, I replied. At least this time, I'd be fighting for something that matters to me. February through April became a carefully orchestrated double life. By day, I performed my corporate role with just enough competence to avoid scrutiny. Evenings and weekends disappeared into LSAT preparation, hidden practice tests, and research into law school programs that offered strong financial aid packages. To avoid suspicion, I maintained regular dinners with my parents, strategically dropping comments about healthcare management certificate programs I was considering, to create the illusion of continuing along their chosen path. Each deception felt simultaneously wrong and necessary, like building a lifeboat while pretending the ship wasn't sinking. June brought the LSAT, scheduled on a Saturday when I typically visited my parents. I fabricated a work emergency requiring weekend hours, then drove 3 hours to a testing center in a different city to avoid running into anyone who might report back to them. The 5-hour exam drained every ounce of my mental energy, but walking out, I felt more alive than I had in years. When my scores arrived 4 weeks later, I stared in disbelief at the 174 displayed on my screen, well above the average for top law schools. Tears of validation blurred my vision. For the first time, law school wasn't just a distant dream, but a tangible possibility. I forwarded the results to Lauren, who responded with congratulations and an invitation to celebrate. You've proven you have what it takes, she said over dinner that evening. Now comes the harder part, making it happen despite the obstacles. Applications became my secret obsession. Nights and weekends disappeared into personal statements, diversity essays, and recommendation requests from professors who still remembered my passion from unauthorized law classes. Lauren connected me with admissions counselors at several schools, providing introductions that helped my applications stand out among thousands. October brought the first acceptance letter from a respectable mid-tier school with a partial scholarship. While grateful, I waited anxiously for responses from my top choices. 2 rejections followed, denting my confidence until a Sunday morning email arrived from Georgetown Law. Congratulations on your acceptance to Georgetown University Law Center. I read the message 10 times, unable to believe it was real. The accompanying scholarship offer wouldn't cover everything, but combined with loans and my savings, it made attendance possible without parental support. I called Lauren immediately. I got in, I whispered, still in shock. Georgetown with a merit scholarship. I never doubted you would, she replied. Now, when are you telling your parents? That question sobered my celebration instantly. Not until everything else is in place. The following weeks became a blur of preparation. I researched affordable apartments near campus, connected with potential roommates through law school forums, and calculated precise budgets for every expense from textbooks to toilet paper. Lauren introduced me to Madison Park, a fellow incoming Georgetown 1L who needed a roommate for a modest 2-bedroom in Arlington. During our first video chat, Madison and I clicked immediately. With her practical approach and wry humor, she represented everything I'd missed by suppressing my authentic self for so long. My parents aren't exactly thrilled about law school either, she confided. They wanted me to join the family restaurant business. But they've accepted it's my choice, even if they don't understand it. That acceptance sounds nice, I replied wistfully. By February, our lease was signed, my Georgetown deposit paid, and my resignation letter drafted. I began discreetly packing my most essential belongings when my parents weren't visiting, storing boxes with Jessica, my former college roommate, who lived nearby. Each step toward freedom lightened the weight I'd carried for years. The final piece came when I recovered my personal documents from my parents' home during a weekend visit. While they attended a charity function, I located my birth certificate, social security card, and childhood medical records from my father's immaculately organized filing cabinet. The guilt of taking what was rightfully mine felt absurd, yet necessary given their pattern of control. On my last night before the confrontation, I sat in my apartment surrounded by the few boxes I hadn't yet moved, methodically detaching myself from everything I could live without. When the sun rose, I would finally stand up for my own life, whatever the consequences. I chose Sunday dinner for the confrontation, knowing the familiar ritual would provide some structure to an otherwise chaotic conversation. My mother's perfectly roasted chicken and seasonal vegetables laid out on the formal dining room table created an illusion of normalcy that would soon shatter. Throughout appetizers, I maintained light conversation while mentally rehearsing the speech I'd practiced 100 times. When my father began discussing a potential promotion within my department, the moment arrived. "I need to tell you both something important," I interrupted, setting down my fork with deliberate calm. "I've been accepted to Georgetown Law School, and I'm going." The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats before my mother's forced laugh broke it. "Very funny, Samantha. Now about that promotion Richard mentioned. I'm serious. Classes start in August. I've already paid my deposit and signed a lease in Arlington." My father's face darkened as he realized this wasn't a theoretical discussion. "You did this behind our backs. After everything we've discussed." "I did it despite everything you've dictated," I corrected. "I'm 24 years old. This is my decision to make." My mother's practiced composure slipped, revealing the anger beneath. "With what money?" "Certainly not ours. With scholarships, loans, and savings. I don't expect your financial support." "How gracious of you," my father said coldly. "And your job?" "The position we secured for you. I've submitted my resignation effective next Friday." The facade of civility crumbled entirely. My mother's voice rose with each word, "You ungrateful, impulsive child. Do you have any idea what we've sacrificed to set you on a successful path? You sacrificed my happiness and autonomy for your vision of success," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. "I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I'm informing you of my decision." My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the crystal glasses. "This is about Ryan, isn't it? Some emotional reaction to a breakup blown out of proportion. This has nothing to do with Ryan and everything to do with finally living my own life." My mother switched tactics, tears welling in her eyes. "We only wanted what's best for you. To protect you from struggle and disappointment. No, you wanted to control me. There's a difference." The words I'd suppressed for years finally broke free. Real love means supporting someone's authentic path, not forcing them down the road you've chosen. "After everything we've given you," my father growled, "this is how you repay us. I never asked for your gifts with strings attached." "And what happens when you fail?" my mother demanded. "When you're drowning in debt with a useless degree. You'll come crawling back expecting us to fix your mess." Her lack of faith hurt worse than her anger. "If that happens, I'll fix it myself." "But it won't." My father stood abruptly. "If you walk out that door committed to this foolishness, don't expect our support. Financially or otherwise. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. Though anticipated, hearing it spoken aloud still stung. I understand, I said quietly. I hope someday you'll respect my choice enough to reconnect, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for your approval. My mother's sob followed me to the door, a sound that nearly broke my resolve. For a moment, I hesitated, the lifetime habit of yielding to their expectations tugging at me. Then I remembered the hollow-eyed woman in the Christmas party bathroom mirror, and found the strength to continue walking. The drive to my apartment passed in a blur of tears and determination. I'd prepared for this rupture logically, but emotionally, the finality left me shaken. By morning, 3 missed calls and a scathing voice message from my father confirmed the completeness of our breach. Moving day arrived the following weekend. Jessica helped load the remaining boxes into my used Honda Civic, which I'd purchased specifically, because my parents wouldn't recognize it if they came looking for me. The drive to Arlington took 7 hours, each mile increasing the distance from my past life. Madison greeted me with a handmade, "Future lawyer lives here," sign on our apartment door. The small 2-bedroom walk-up, with its mismatched furniture and cracked bathroom tiles, couldn't have been further from my parents' perfectly appointed home, yet walking in felt like my first breath of freedom. "Welcome home," Madison said, helping with my heaviest box. "Sorry, it's not fancy." "It's perfect," I replied, meaning it completely. The first week brought practical challenges: setting up utilities, navigating a new city, and managing a suddenly tight budget. Each obstacle I overcame without parental intervention strengthened my confidence. Small victories accumulated: finding the cheapest grocery store, figuring out public transportation, securing a part-time research position with a professor's help. 2 weeks after my move, an email arrived from my mother, subject line, "Reconsider." The message outlined all the ways my decision would lead to failure, offering a path back if I would come to my senses before irreparable damage is done. I drafted multiple responses before deleting them all, recognizing that any engagement would only extend the power struggle. 3 days later, my father's email arrived with a more direct approach: "Your mother is devastated. This selfish behavior is destroying our family. Last chance to fix this mistake." I forwarded both messages to Lauren, seeking perspective from someone who understood my journey. "They are still trying to control the narrative," she observed over phone. Notice how both messages frame your independence as destruction rather than growth. Classic manipulation. Her insight helped me craft a single, brief response: "I love you both, but I need to follow my own path. I hope you'll respect my decision enough to maintain a relationship without conditions. I'm open to conversation when you're ready for that." Their final communication arrived by certified mail, a formal letter stating they were removing me from their will, revoking access to family accounts, and considered me estranged until I returned to responsible behavior. The legal language revealed how thoroughly they viewed relationships as transactions. Madison found me crying over the letter on our second-hand couch. "They're trying to hurt you because they can't control you anymore," she said, sitting beside me. "That's about them, not you." As orientation week approached, I immersed myself in preparation, channeling anxiety into action. My parents' attempts to contact me gradually decreased until silence became our new normal. The pain of separation remained, but alongside it grew a steadying sense of authenticity. For the first time, I was living according to my own values, making mistakes and celebrating successes that belonged truly to me. The night before classes began, I stood on our small balcony looking over the Arlington skyline toward the Georgetown campus in the distance. The path ahead would be challenging, but it was mine. Finally, completely mine. Georgetown law's imposing buildings intimidated me that first morning as I joined the stream of confident-looking 1LS entering orientation. Imposter syndrome whispered that everyone else belonged here while I was playing dress-up in a borrowed life. But by the end of the first week, the familiar rhythm of academic challenges had quieted those doubts. Unlike my pre-med experience, law school ignited my intellect. Constitutional law fascinated me, civil procedure puzzles kept me awake with excitement rather than dread, and even the dreaded contract law became engaging when connected to real-world applications. For the first time, exhaustion came from passion rather than obligation. Madison proved an ideal roommate and study partner, her organized approach complementing my creative thinking. We established routines that maximized our limited resources, meal prepping on Sundays, alternating coffee duty during all-night study sessions, and maintaining a shared spreadsheet of free campus events with complimentary food. Lauren connected me with a part-time research position at her firm, Goldstein and Associates, which specialized in healthcare compliance and patient advocacy. The irony of using my forced healthcare background to support my legal education wasn't lost on me. 3 evenings a week, I analyzed medical billing documents and regulatory filings, connecting theoretical classroom concepts with practical applications. You have a unique perspective, Lauren observed during my 3rd month. Your inside knowledge of healthcare operations helps you spot issues our other researchers miss. 4 semester grades validated my choice, straight as with particular commendation in healthcare law. I allowed myself a brief moment of vindication imagining my parents' surprise, before redirecting that energy toward spring semester preparation. As winter break approached, the absence of family plans highlighted my isolation. Madison invited me to join her family's Hanukkah celebration, an offer I gratefully accepted. The Park family welcomed me without question, their noisy, loving interactions so different from my parents' formal dinners. Mrs. Park sent me home with containers of leftovers and a hand-knitted scarf, simple kindnesses that brought unexpected tears. January brought my first attempt at reconciliation. After considerable reflection, I sent my parents a brief email with my 4 grades attached, writing, "I hope you're both well. Wanted to share that the first semester went well. I'm learning a lot and feeling confident about this path. Happy New Year." 3 days later, my mother replied, "Congratulations on your academic success. We hope you are taking care of your health along with your studies. The house feels empty without your Sunday visits. Not quite an olive branch, but not a slammed door either." Our cautious exchange continued with monthly updates, carefully avoiding both confrontation and meaningful connection. Their responses remained measured, neither acknowledging my achievement nor criticizing my choice. Spring semester introduced corporate accountability, a course examining legal and ethical responsibilities of healthcare organizations. Professor Harrington's lectures on billing fraud and Medicare violations sparked uncomfortable recognition of practices I'd observed at Northeastern Healthcare. The line between aggressive business practices and fraud often appears blurry to corporations, Professor Harrington explained, until someone faces criminal charges. His words echoed in my mind as I reviewed documents at Goldstein and Associates that evening. The billing codes and charge patterns from several healthcare providers looked disturbingly familiar, matching strategies I'd seen in my former workplace reports. When Lawrence stopped by my research desk later that night, I hesitantly voiced my concerns. "Some of these practices look identical to procedures at my former company," I explained, showing her specific examples. "Is this what we're investigating?" Lauren's expression grew serious. "Yes. We're representing several patient advocacy groups in a potential class action. The question is whether these billing practices cross into fraudulent territory." My stomach dropped. "Which companies are involved?" She hesitated before answering. "Several regional providers, but the primary defendant is Northeastern Healthcare Solutions." The room seemed to tilt. That's where I worked. My father's friend is the COO. I know, Lauren admitted. I didn't assign you this case by accident, Sam. Your experience could be valuable, but only if you're comfortable with it. Ethical dilemmas weren't just theoretical anymore. I should recuse myself, shouldn't I? Conflict of interest. That's one option, Lauren agreed. Or you could provide context that might help patients who were overcharged. It's your decision. That night, I barely slept, weighing professional ethics against personal loyalty. By morning, I'd decided to recuse myself from the specific case while providing general information about billing practices that wouldn't directly implicate my former colleagues. My careful balance collapsed 2 weeks later, when my phone displayed my father's number for the first time in months. Against better judgment, I answered. You're working for Goldstein, he stated without greeting, voice tight with anger. The firm's suing us. I'm a research assistant there, yes, I replied cautiously. But I've recused myself from that case. Don't insult my intelligence, Samantha. This isn't coincidence. You're helping them attack the company that supported you, the industry your mother dedicated her career to. That's not true. I made sure to. Bradley saw your name on correspondence, he interrupted. After everything, you couldn't just pursue your law fantasy without trying to hurt us in the process. The unfairness stung. I specifically removed myself from that case to avoid any conflict. Yet somehow you're still at the firm bringing the suit. Convenient timing. I got the job before the case even existed, I protested. This isn't about you. His bitter laugh cut through the line. It never is, according to you. Enjoy your revenge, Samantha. Your mother is devastated, again. The call ended before I could respond. Within hours, my professional email received a formal cease and desist letter from Northeastern Healthcare's legal department, claiming I possessed confidential information obtained during my employment. The not-so-subtle threat of legal action against me personally left me shaking. Lauren was furious when I showed her the letter. This is intimidation, pure and simple. They are trying to scare you away from the firm entirely. It's working, I admitted. I can't afford to fight this alongside law school. You won't have to, she assured me. Our firm will handle any threats. But there's something else to consider. What's that? If they are this aggressive about preventing your peripheral involvement, they might be genuinely worried about what you know. The implication hung between us. What if the billing practices I'd observed crossed legal lines? What if my parents knew? That evening, my mother's number appeared on my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. How could you do this? She demanded, voice raw. Your father's position is at risk because of this lawsuit. I had nothing to do with initiating it, I replied. And if the company did nothing wrong, there's nothing to worry about. Her silence spoke volumes. Mom, I pressed, did you know about the billing practices being questioned? Every healthcare provider maximizes reimbursement, she deflected. It's standard industry practice. That's not what I asked. Another pause. The board approved all billing strategies. Everything was vetted by legal. The lawyer I was becoming recognized the non-answer. If patients were overcharged for services. Don't lecture me about an industry you abandoned, she snapped. This is exactly why we opposed this path for you. The first chance you get, you're attacking your own family's livelihood. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm trying to do what's right. Right for whom? Not for your family, certainly. After we hung up, I called Lauren. I need your honest assessment. How strong is the case against Northeastern? Strong enough that they've already approached us about settlement discussions, she replied. Why? Because I think I need to testify after all. The Georgetown Law Library became my sanctuary during the weeks leading to my deposition. Between classes and endless preparation sessions with Lauren, I barely saw our apartment. Madison left encouraging notes on our refrigerator and occasionally forced me to eat something besides coffee and granola bars. The case had evolved from potential class action to formal hearing before a federal regulatory body, with Judge Harold Peterson presiding. As the date approached, my anxiety crescendoed. Despite Lauren's assurances about the limited scope of my testimony, the weight of publicly opposing my parents' professional world pressed on me like a physical burden. The morning of the hearing dawned crisp and clear, belying the emotional storm brewing inside me. Madison helped me select a conservative navy suit and simple pearl earrings, my hair pulled back in a professional bun. The woman in the mirror looked like someone who knew what she was doing, a convincing disguise for the turmoil beneath. Remember, you're just reporting what you observed, Lauren reminded me as we approached the federal building. You're not responsible for any actions the company took. The courtroom's imposing mahogany and marble surfaces gleamed under fluorescent lighting as we entered. I scanned the room, immediately locating my parents sitting stiffly behind the defendant's table. My mother's cream-colored suit contrasted with my father's charcoal gray, their coordinated appearance a visual reminder of their united front against me. When they noticed me, the synchronized eye roll was so familiar, it almost made me laugh despite everything. Their dismissal, practiced, reflexive, expected, somehow steadied me. This was familiar territory, their disapproval the background radiation of my life. Judge Peterson entered, and the formal proceedings began with opening statements. I sat behind Lauren's table, focusing on controlling my breathing while corporate attorneys outlined their defense. According to them, Northeastern Healthcare's billing practices represented industry-standard methods within regulatory guidelines. When my name was called to testify, the walk to the witness stand stretched impossibly long. Swearing to tell the truth felt momentous, the weight of the oath settling over me as I took my seat. As I adjusted my position, I caught Judge Peterson studying me with particular attention. Please state your name and occupation for the record, the plaintiff's attorney began. Samantha Mitchell. I'm a law student at Georgetown and research assistant at Goldstein & Associates. And your relationship to the defendants? Northeastern Healthcare Solutions was my former employer. I worked as a healthcare operations analyst for approximately 18 months after completing my undergraduate degree. The judge's eyebrows raised slightly as he glanced between me and the defendant's table. Mitchell. Are you related to the defendants? Yes, Your Honor. Eleanor and Richard Mitchell are my parents. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. My mother stared straight ahead, jaw tightening, while my father whispered urgently to their attorney. The questioning proceeded methodically through my employment history, establishing my role and access to billing information. With each answer, I maintained steady eye contact with the attorney, avoiding looking toward my parents. During your employment, did you observe the coding practices outlined in Exhibit C? Yes. Those upcoding methods were standard procedure for maximizing reimbursement from insurance providers and Medicare. Was there awareness that these practices might exceed regulatory guidelines? Objection. Northeastern's attorney interrupted. Cause for speculation about others' mental states. I'll rephrase, the plaintiff's attorney smoothly continued. Ms. Mitchell, were discussions about these coding practices ever framed in terms of regulatory compliance? Yes. I attended quarterly compliance meetings where these specific coding strategies were discussed. The term gray area was frequently used to describe them. My testimony continued for nearly an hour, detailing specific instances, reports, and meetings where questionable billing practices were standard procedure. Throughout, I maintained professional composure, presenting facts without editorial comment. When Northeastern's attorney rose for cross-examination, his approach was immediately aggressive. "Ms. Mitchell, isn't it true that you left Northeastern Healthcare on negative terms?" "I resigned to attend law school." "After being passed over for promotion, correct?" "No. I was offered advancement, but declined it to pursue my education." "And isn't it true that you have personal grievances against your parents, who are affiliated with Northeastern?" Lauren objected immediately. "Relevance, Your Honor. Ms. Mitchell's family relationships have no bearing on factual testimony about business practices," she observed. "I'll allow limited questioning to establish potential bias," Judge Peterson ruled. "Witness will answer." Taking a deep breath, I met the attorney's gaze. "My parents and I have had disagreements about my career path. That has no bearing on the accuracy of my testimony about billing practices I personally observed and documented. You expect this court to believe your testimony isn't motivated by personal vindictiveness. I expect this court to evaluate the evidence, which includes documentation supporting everything I've testified to today." The attorney switched tactics. "You have no medical background or formal training in medical coding. Isn't it possible you misunderstood legitimate practices?" "I worked directly with these systems for 18 months and received company training on implementation." The internal documents provided to this court use the same terminology and procedures I've described. As cross-examination continued, my father's expression darkened progressively. When the attorney returned to questioning my motives, something in my father snapped. "This is absurd," he exclaimed, rising from his seat. "She's deliberately trying to damage our reputation out of spite." "Mr. Mitchell." Judge Peterson's gavel cracked sharply. "Another outburst and you'll be removed from my courtroom." The interruption actually helped steady me. My father's loss of composure contrasted with my maintained professionalism, a visual representation of our reversed roles. When questioning finally concluded, Judge Peterson studied me thoughtfully. "Ms. Mitchell, it's unusual to have a witness testify in a case involving family members. Your composure under these difficult circumstances is noted." Stepping down from the witness stand, I maintained my professional demeanor until reaching the hallway, where my legs nearly buckled. Lauren steadied me with a supportive hand. "You did brilliantly," she whispered. "Exactly what was needed." We waited in a conference room while testimony continued. Hours later, Lauren returned from the courtroom with news. "The judge is taking everything under advisement, but based on his questions, I think we've made our case. Your testimony was compelling, especially alongside the documentation." My parents left immediately after the proceedings without comment. That evening in our apartment, Madison brought home celebration ice cream, despite the lack of final resolution. "Regardless of the judge's decision, you stood up for what's right under impossible circumstances. That deserves recognition." 2 weeks later, Judge Peterson issued his ruling. Northeastern Healthcare had indeed violated regulatory guidelines with their billing practices. The company faced substantial fines and mandatory compliance monitoring. My parents, while not personally liable, would face professional consequences as executives. The victory felt hollow. I'd done what was legally and ethically right, but the personal cost remained uncertain. That night, I stared at my phone debating whether to reach out to my parents before deciding the next move should be theirs. Georgetown Law's graduation ceremony felt surreal after 3 years of intensive work. Seated alphabetically among my classmates in our ceremonial robes, I scanned the audience knowing I wouldn't find familiar faces. Madison's family had saved me a seat in their section, their handmade, "Go Sam," sign visible from the stage. When my name was called, unexpected cheers erupted from the Park family, joined by Lauren and colleagues from Goldstein and Associates, who had become my professional family. Walking across that stage represented not just academic achievement, but personal victory over doubts, both my own and those projected onto me by others. The official photograph captured a woman I barely recognized, confident, accomplished, unburdened by others' expectations. The diploma in my hands represented more than legal education, it symbolized reclaimed autonomy. At the reception afterward, Madison's mother enveloped me in a warm hug. "We're so proud of you, sweetie. You've worked so hard." Her genuine pride brought unexpected tears. This was how parental support should feel, unconditional, celebratory of authentic achievement. The following week, Lauren called me into her office with unexpected news. "I'd like to formally offer you an associate position," she announced. "Your work during law school impressed everyone, and your ethical backbone during the Northeastern case proved your character." The offer exceeded my expectations, both in responsibility and compensation. After years of financial struggle, the salary would allow me to begin repaying loans while building security on my own terms. 2 days after accepting the position, an email arrived from an address I didn't immediately recognize. The subject line read simply, "Congratulations." The message inside was from my mother. "Samantha, a colleague mentioned seeing you at Georgetown's graduation ceremony. Congratulations on completing your law degree. Your father and I hope this educational achievement brings you satisfaction. If you're amenable, I would appreciate meeting for coffee next time you're in Boston. No agenda or expectations. Regards. Mom." Not exactly warm, but the first communication initiated by either parent since the courthouse confrontation. After careful consideration, I replied with equally measured openness, suggesting a meeting at a neutral cafe halfway between our locations. The agreed date arrived with crawling anxiety. I arrived early, selecting a corner table with good sight lines to the door. When my mother entered precisely on time, her appearance startled me. She looked older, more tired than I remembered, designer clothes still impeccable, but somehow hanging differently on her frame. "Samantha," she acknowledged, taking the seat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Of course," I replied, uncertain how to navigate this fragile reconnect ion. After ordering, we sat in awkward silence until my mother finally spoke. "Northeastern Healthcare has completed its compliance restructuring. Your father has taken early retirement as part of the settlement. Not an apology, but an acknowledgement of consequences." From my mother, this represented significant concession. "I'm sorry it came to that," I said, meaning it. "That wasn't my intention." "I believe you," she replied after a moment, surprising me. "You were always principled, even as a child." Perhaps we should have recognized that strength rather than trying to redirect it. The closest thing to validation I'd ever received from her. "I never wanted to hurt you or Dad. I just needed to live authentically." She nodded slightly, stirring her untouched coffee. "I've had considerable time to reflect. While I still believe we wanted what was best for you, our methods were, perhaps, overly controlling." From Eleanor Mitchell, this constituted a profound apology. I accepted it as such. "How is Dad, really?" I asked. Struggling with the transition. His identity was very connected to his professional position. She hesitated before adding, "He's not ready for this conversation yet. But he did mention your testimony was articulate." From my father, this qualified as high praise. We parted with a tentative agreement to monthly coffee meetings, a cautious rebuilding on new foundations. The relationship would never be what my parents had envisioned, but perhaps something more authentic could grow in its place. That autumn, I launched a project that brought my journey full circle. Working with Lauren's approval, I created a scholarship fund for pre-law students facing family opposition to their educational choices. The first recipient, a brilliant first-generation college student whose parents wanted her to work in their family business immediately after graduation, reminded me powerfully of myself 4 years earlier. At the scholarship reception, I shared my story publicly for the first time. Sometimes the hardest people to stand up to are the ones who believe they know what's best for us, I told the audience. But authentic success can only come from following your own path, even when that means standing alone initially. The monthly coffees with my mother gradually evolved into careful relationship reconstruction. She never fully understood my choices, but learned to respect them as valid. My father eventually joined for occasional meetings, our conversations carefully avoiding both the lawsuit and my childhood for safer topics like Boston weather and neutral current events. 3 years into my legal career, I was assigned lead counsel on a patient advocacy case representing families overcharged by medical conglomerates. The night before filing, I found myself reflecting on how completely my life had transformed. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but undeniably mine. The frightened woman who once had panic attacks in corporate bathrooms now confidently navigated courtrooms and client meetings. The daughter desperately seeking parental approval now measured success by internal standards rather than external validation. Most importantly, the person who once vanished into others' expectations now stood firmly in her own identity. Judge Peterson's surprise at seeing me testify against my parents had been momentary. My pride in myself for finally standing my ground, that would last a lifetime. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against people who thought they knew what was best for you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of finding independence against the odds resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more authentic life stories. Don't forget to share with anyone in your life who might need encouragement to follow their own path. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply be true to yourself, even when no one else understands.